Final Fantasy as a franchise is no stranger to violence, death, and war. But it wasn't until the 32nd game in the franchise, Final Fantasy Type-0, that any game would earn itself an M rating, in no small part due to their depiction of war within the game. Type-0, unlike its predecessors, holds nothing back when it comes to the realities of war and the brutality it brings. For lack of a better description, the world of Orience as depicted in Final Fantasy Type-0 feels real in terms of what war looks like when your ground troops can shoot lightning rockets, ride dragons, and summon giant monsters that rival warships. This isn't to say the franchise prior to this didn't show the consequences of conflict or how real things could get, with many depictions of mass death like the poison in Vidoma Castle in Final Fantasy V or the dropping of the Sector 7 plate in Final Fantasy VII. Even still, those moments are seen from far away and are largely focused on the evilness of the acts and not necessarily what it's like on ground level. Even when the violence is closer to us, in previous titles it would either be bloodless, off-screen, or some kind of horrible magic-related death due to fantasy bullshit. So when Type-0 opens up, its only concern is showing you how different Hajime Tabata's Final Fantasy would be from the usual experience. This leads to one of the best openings in the entire franchise. Today, we're looking at the opening of Final Fantasy Type-0 as well as the intro to Chapter 1, as these two combined are some of the best tone-setting Final Fantasy has to offer. Welcome to the lounge. Things start off normal enough with the goddess Diva recounting the origin of this game's world named Orience. This time around, the world is broken up into 4 peristelia, each centered around one of the 4 crystals that both bless those from their lands and guide how the people of each nation live their lives. There's the Black Tortoise Crystal of the Lorokan Alliance. Their people are blessed with the ability to call upon great strength and resilience. The Azure Dragon Crystal gives the Kingdom of Concordia the ability to commune with monsters. The White Tiger Crystal of the Milites Empire bestows great knowledge upon its followers, allowing them to create the world's most technologically advanced society with weapons and armor to match. Finally, the Vermilion Bird Crystal belonging to the Dominion of Rubrum, blessing its people with the ability to use magic. After introducing the 4 nations, Diva says a few lines of prophecy pertaining to the plight of Orience.
When 9 and 9 meet 9, Tempest Phoenix shall be willed upon them. For without the Agita, their world, called Orience, must persist in its spiral.
So far, so normal. After this though, you see what the game world really is. The next shots are of the Milites Empire getting hyped up by their leader Imperial Marshal Cid Alustain. Gone is the clean look of the scenes with the goddess. This footage is grainier, like it was being filmed right there in the moment, as the Milites Empire prepares for war. The Milites Empire would then execute a multi-pronged attack on Rubrum with their main fleet swarming the country at large, while a special force was sent to the capital city of Academia. From then on, we'll be seeing that same war footage style as the end of this world's era of peace. We see the invasion of the Imperial Special Forces, aided by an immensely powerful, nearly immortal being called the l'Cie. This act breaking the Pax Codex, a treaty signed by all 4 nations barring the use of l'Cie in war. Not only this, but after Rubrum began fighting back with all it had, including summoning the Eidolon Bahamut to take down their warships, Imperial forces debuted the Crystal Jammer, a new weapon that rendered Rubrum's crystal inactive and taking away their main means of defense. From then on, what once was a clash of forces became a massacre. Entire squads are gunned down and stabbed right there before us. The camera at times covered in blood as the invasion forces sweep through their defenseless foes. It's at this point we're introduced to the leader of the Dominion, Chancellor Kalia Cheval VI, as Marshal Alustain gives Chancellor Cheval 6 hours to surrender their crystals to the Empire or, quote, face the full might of our forces, in which case I promise you the roads of Rubrum will run red with the blood of her people. Now, with things at their bleakest, against all odds, another Eidolon, this time Odin, comes charging through the Imperial forces. At Odin's side stands a crimson cloaked figure completely unaffected by the Crystal Jammer. The figure raises and plants the flag of Ruben before revealing himself to have been one of our protagonists alongside the other 11 original members of Class 0. This moment alone shows how different this group is from the rest of Dominion's forces, as not only were they completely unaffected by the effects of the Crystal Jammer, but the presence of these 12 acts as a beacon of hope in their darkest moment. And all of that is before you even get to the main menu. I absolutely love this, because before you can even properly start the game, it's letting you know what kind of story this is going to be tonally, while giving you a glimpse of our 12 playable characters and the status they hold within the world. Even though we don't exactly see them doing much, the way they're presented in this moment and the circumstances of their arrival tell you at the very least they're beyond what we saw from Dominion forces aside from them. So what happens when you finally start the game? Do you get to wield the powers of these individuals right away? Absolutely not, but we do hear them. Various members of Class 0 say this.
For them, the path was not chosen.
They chose their path,
Yes. Not knowing the fear of death.
having never learned the fear of confronting it.
Remember that for later. But the real question is, who do we follow then? Well, just in case you're under the impression that the generally bleaker tone of things was just for show in the opening, we get to follow the events of the invasion from the perspective of a low-level unit. As he stumbles through the city sword in hand, nothing surrounding him but death as he walks past body after body, with the warship flying overhead being a sign that things are far from over. He finally finds 2 survivors to ask if they'd seen a guy in a red cape, and just as they were telling him no, the trio was firebombed by Imperial forces. The attack instantly killing one, injured the other, and blowing away our yet unnamed POV character. The assailants waste no time attempting to finish off the survivors, with our grunt only surviving due to the interventions of his war chocobo Chichiri distracting the Imperial soldier long enough for our guy to take him out with the sword. He eventually saddles up and continues his search on Chocobo back, but eventually falls off. Before passing out, he says he must find Ace, giving us a little more on who he's searching for. An hour later, he's woken up by a gunshot. A group of Imperial soldiers had just shot Chichiri and are closing in. After trying in vain to heal the poor Chocobo, he screams Ace's name to the heavens as a last-ditch call-out before death. Just as the soldiers are about to open fire, they are killed by a fire rocket. A fire rocket that was delivered by Ace, who we now see is the same character to plant the flag in the intro. Ace comes over to answer the call and we finally get a name, Izana. The next part of this is a moment that goes to show how cold this world is. Although Ace did try to heal his friend, he knew it was too late, and he and Queen, she's Queen by the way, had to just leave him there. Now this isn't for nothing, they were needed to break the invasion. As they were walking away, you can see them going towards enemy forces, and as the scene shifts, we see the rest of the unit Ace cooked closing in, as well as another member of Class 0, this time 9, preparing to fight. Now what happens next honestly works best if I just show you.
What do you think, girl? Is this the end? Machina. Stay strong. Rem. I would have liked to see you again. DJ. I'm glad that you're here with me. No. I don't want to die.
From there, it actually does continue, but the game really doesn't want the music that plays in this section to get clipped, so I'll just tell you. 6 minutes later, presumably after defeating the Imperial soldiers, Queen tells Ace to say goodbye. Returning to Chichiri and Izana, he does just that, making Izana look as if he's just resting. As the game title shows, Ace cries before we get some opening credits and the game starts for real this time. What makes these intro sequences so good to me is that they are effective both when you see it for the first time, but as well as when you watch it again with a greater understanding of the world. The carnage you see on display just becomes all the more tragic when you realize displays of great power like summoning idolins comes at the cost of the lives of those who summon them. And not only this, but those that do summon them are often put into squads whose whole purpose is to summon idolins, making their deployment suicide missions. Further still, the memories of the dead are erased from the minds of the living, with the only thing showing that they lived at all being the knowing tags left behind. The cadets are aware of this phenomenon, and you see them having to grip with knowing that someone existed but not being able to remember them, good or bad. When you learn why Izana was there in the first place and of Ace's involvement, it makes Izana's desperation and sadness in Chapter 1 even more impactful. Remember that clip I said to remember? Here it is again if you forgot.
For them, the path was not chosen.
They chose their path,
Yes. Not knowing the fear of death.
having never learned the fear of confronting it.
Phrases like these take on an entirely different meaning as the game goes along and more is learned. Initially, it may seem as the class being described as unflappable badasses in the face of overwhelming odds, and this is accurate to an extent, but as more is learned of the reality these people live in and you see the choices Class 0 make in the end, it becomes a declaration of great sacrifice, a sacrificial path that runs counter to the dictations of prophecy. To further this point, I want to take a second to talk about what Diva means in the opening by Orient's existing within its spiral, and just how many times Orient's has spiraled. I feel like knowing what this means and how it pairs with the visuals on screen can put into perspective just how much suffering the people of this world have been through. You see, Orient's spiral of history is the byproduct of a divine experiment being run by the deities Pulse and Lindsay and observed by the goddess Diva. They do this via their respective immortal servants Aracia and Gala with the end goal of opening Type-0's gate, the gates to the afterlife. Aracia believes that a select few powerful souls will create the Agito, savior of Orients powerful enough to open Type-0's gate, while Gala's method involved forcing the gate open by flooding it with the souls of billions through a world-ending slaughter known as Tempest Venus. Should the gates not open via either method, the world is reset and the cycle begins anew. These failed attempts are represented by the, let's call them stars, that we see spiraling during this part of the opening. A spiral that goes on further than we can see, representing over 6 billion failures. 6 billion times life on Orients was snuffed out, but prior to this knowledge, it's just a beautiful visual. So here I feel the need to allow anyone who has gotten this far and hasn't played the game or haven't finished it for whatever reason and don't want any of the ending bits spoiled for you, then here's the time to exit. It's been real, do all the YouTube stuff, and show a friend. As for those who remain, let's continue. When you reach the end and Class 0 ultimately chooses to sacrifice themselves and the experiment isn't continued, it gives the visual of the spiral of history a whole new connotation as we are truly viewing the end of that spiral. Not just in the fact that it's the current one, but there really is finality here. Not only this, it makes the lines, "For them, the path was not chosen," have more weight than perhaps they would have at the story's beginning. That is what makes this all work so well as an introduction. It gets you excited for what's to come in one view, but then it becomes haunting and tragic the next. And that's the video for today. So what did you think of the intro for Final Fantasy Type-0? And are there any other games that you could think of that have good ass intros? If you like that shit, hit the like button, let the algo know that you did in fact like that shit, hype it up, and do all the YouTube stuff. If you have any questions about this game or any other game that I've talked about in this channel, feel free to go ahead and drop a comment about it. And I want to thank you for watching this episode of the 3-Star Lounge, and I hope to see you in the next one. And without any further ado, let's boogie. When 9 and 9 meet 9, the depths of reason shall stir. When the seal of creation is broken, a voice like thunder will sound, and thou shalt know. We have arrived.